Hello, friends. Hopefully, everyone could hear me. Hopefully, the microphone is working. Can I get a sound check from my moderators? That would be wonderful. Here we are, friends. A new month and lots of stuff this month that's coming in. I'm going to go over the astrology for the full moon. Excuse me one second. Got to get this thing down. Forgot about that. That's for the laptop. Thanks, Bex Bureau. We're going to talk about this full moon and what it means, the implications of it, the symbolism of it. I'm also going to cover some of the astrology coming in for the first 7-8 days of the month of November, and it's a doozy for sure. And of course, today is Sunday. I'm going to be on the Zoom call with my community right after this, and today we are doing the topic of monthly astrology overview. This is where I go through the entire month and look at the high points and what are the major alignments and trends that are taking place. So you'll want to consider joining. There's a link down below. There's a free 7-day trial, so there's nothing, to lose. But we've also included another live stream on Thursdays where members get to interact with me. And on Thursdays, we actually talk about current events, what you see in the news, some of the trends that you're seeing. It's not so much about the astrology, but it's more of the community giving me their feedback on what they're seeing and what's going on. So consider joining. So we have 2 live streams a week in the inner circle. So it's definitely worth it, between the weekly astrology overview, the Zoom calls on Sunday, and now the live streams on Thursday in the community. You don't need Zoom for the live streams on Thursday. Anyway, we've got a lot to go over. I do have another slideshow here, and I've got some slides. And to be honest with you, I'm sure, we've all been feeling this heavy, heavy energy that's been just pounding the earth, this geomagnetic energy, which could be measured by the KP index and some of these other satellite instruments. There's quite a few people you could follow that give you real information that comes across as honest and very scientific. One is obviously Stefan Burns, whom I did an interview with a while back. He absolutely knows his stuff. Then there's Mr. MBB333, who is an amateur astronomer, but I believe he's also an airline pilot. So they're trained in, atmospheric temperatures and weather and all that stuff. He's been posting all over the place as well. And so, we are feeling something. And this is what I've been talking about for a while now. This is what I saw coming. And last year, when I did this solar flare event in October of 2024, we did have high intense solar activity for sure. You could go back and trace it. But now we're also seeing it again in this year, in 2025. And we are in what's called solar maximum, where the sun definitely is sending off some powerful solar flares. And if they're directed towards the earth, they will affect us. And we feel it emotionally, psychologically. Things don't start working properly. Some people get energized by it. There have been some times that I have been energized by the energies coming in, because remember, everything in this universe is energy. And as you get more energy hitting the earth, it's sort of sending more power towards you in some way. Sometimes it overwhelms the system and causes problems. So we are definitely in that zone. But what makes this month so tricky, friends, and again, I point this out, not to be negative, not to be, fear-based. You could see that the world is going through a massive transition. It's an energetic one. It's a power structure transformation. It's a great awakening. So many people are awakening to how this world is being controlled. And again, I have to, send kudos to the younger generation, these young kids, I would say under 35, that are tearing it up on the internet with discovering real information about who and what is controlling this planet. Now, they haven't dove deep enough yet to discover beyond the humans who's really controlling the planet. I've done that. I've done that in the inner circle community. And David Icke has talked about it, and many other researchers have talked about it, that there seems to be either an artificial intelligence or an extraterrestrial race that is controlling this planet. That's the same thing, or the same conclusion I've come to. And please do your own research. But David Icke is a good start. But anyway, my point being is these kids are really hammering away at the powers that shouldn't be, and I applaud them for that. And so the Great Awakening continues. So let me start with this presentation here. I'm going to share my screen, entire screen. Give me a second here as we open this up. Okay, here we go. Hopefully everyone could see that. And let me open up this. You can see all my slides here. And let me get it started. Okay, friends. So here we go. Hopefully everyone could see this. And today, this presentation is all about the full moon coming in on. Actually, it's going to be on the 5th, but I'm doing this presentation today. The full moon is on the 5th. I will get to that. I do have slides and charts for the astrology coming in. But as we get into this presentation, I will cover some of the stuff that's going on right now because it's very important to understand. And when I talk to people about, let's say, politics, I ask them, what do you really want to discuss? Do you want to discuss the real politics of what's really going on, the major moves that are being made, or do you want to cover the dog and pony show that the average person watches on the news or on the internet and doesn't understand the bigger picture? So right now, this full moon, like all full moons, bring things to light. And since this is going to be a full moon in Taurus, the sign of Taurus, so wherever this is in your birth chart, you want to figure out what that area is, and that's the area that brings to light something. This one I've called values and confusion, and I will explain that when I get to the chart later on in the presentation. But this full moon, generally speaking, has a lot to do with values, and the confusion part is because of the alignments that are coming in. And a couple of days later, we have some very intense alignments coming in, including Mercury going retrograde. So Mercury is slowing down to go retrograde. So many of you know what Mercury retrograde means. So what is the full moon in Taurus all about? It's going to be on November 5th. I think I have a time for you. Hold on one second. I'm looking at my notes here. Yeah, 8:19 a.m. on the east coast of the United States. So you'll have to convert it if you're in another country or in a different time zone. So Taurus is about security. It's about pleasure. It's about getting things done. Taurus is a very physical sign, but it's a very slow sign. It doesn't like to do things unless it absolutely has to. Okay, symbolically. Everything about astrology is symbolism. If you understand the symbolism, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so here we see this full moon bringing to light something deep. And so here are some of the other areas associated with Taurus, and I put this together. Yes, obviously values, self-worth. That's very important. Comfort, pleasure, strength, materialistic. Taurus is the sign of material possessions. Many Taurus love to possess things or love to have a lot of money because they think it's going to bring them security. They love to own beautiful cars and houses and things related to beauty. Now the strength part comes from the fact that Taurus energy has very great stamina for getting things done, just like the bull. You could see the bull is very sort of headstrong and driven. And so, again, it's symbolic of that. But it also represents money, banking, wealth, business, power, and, of course, real estate, acquisition of real estate or owning real estate. Now, I posted these because I'm going to get into the slides and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, but money and banking, absolutely under this umbrella of Taurus. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, for those newbies that are here on this channel, the whole financial system is teetering. It is absolutely teetering. We know this worldwide. The countries around the world are buying gold and silver, especially gold. They're dumping U.S. treasuries. They're preparing for some sort of reset. Now, many of us know this is coming because we've been studying it for a while. So this falls under the umbrella of money and banking. So there could be this next couple of days, maybe even a week, major announcements about money and banking. Now, we already saw the markets dip. And I can't really give a lot of sort of credibility to the stock market because it's also artificially controlled by AI. These big criminal banks on Wall Street are basically using AI to manipulate markets and, swing things up and down, back and forth. And it's been proven by law, not just lawsuits, but, the DOJ and going after them over the years, the SEC, and fining companies like JP Morgan, billions of dollars for, rigging the gold and silver markets. Anyway, that's part of this umbrella of the full moon in Taurus. Business, absolutely. Power, absolutely. Discovering, again, who's controlling things and what. Now, real estate is a very interesting one when it pertains to this presentation because we're seeing a land grab in Venezuela. So I'm going to basically go over that too. Now, one of the things that Taurus is notorious for, besides it being stubborn, is eating. Food is associated with the sign of the bull. Okay. And what is the number one food in the world? Cow, steak, and so farming and cattle are all under the umbrella. Now, the last few years, especially since Uranus went into Taurus, I said, watch the food business, primarily cows, because Taurus rules cows and bulls. So we are seeing a massive change in the food industry. Okay. And one of the things that I am seeing, and I'll get to that in a second, and here's a beautiful steak. This is all about, controlling the food system. And why do I say that? Because this criminal over here and this criminal organization over here have been attacking this area for many years now, at least 7. Okay. And the latest scheme is that this clown right here, along with these clowns over here, and by the way, for those newbies, if you don't know who this is, please Google it. This here, and of course, this you just put Bill in front of it. And the latest is, and I listened to this quite a few times from several farmers. I like to listen to, private farmers and local farmers throughout the country and sometimes around the world talking about how the restrictions are being implemented so heavily on their industry. The latest is not only do they want to vaccinate these creatures, okay, and inject them with all kinds of crap, but they want to chip each one of them. See how they have an ear tag right now? This is manually done. They want to inject something inside the animal. So it does several things. One, it reduces the methane that they release, which is totally insane. Okay. In other words, messing with their digestive system. But they also want to implement this tracking device so that they know that the so-called government and the powers that shouldn't be, primarily this criminal organization, knows how many cows you have, where they are, how their health is, all of this stuff. Now, this was a farmer that I listened to about a week ago, a young farmer. He had a pretty big ranch, and he was talking about how they're pushing this agenda on the farmers. Okay. And so this is a real battle. Now, this has been going on around the world. It's not just the United States. The Dutch farmers know about this and many others, how they've been under attack for, bullshit, literally methane, garbage. So this is all under this umbrella of the full moon. So keep an eye on these areas, friends, is what I'm suggesting. Every time we have these astrology alignments, look to the symbolism of that sign. So here we're talking about cows and bulls and all this stuff. So this week primarily, look for stories related to cows, food production, warehouses that burn down mysteriously. Anything to do with food this week is very important. Now, speaking of food, the reason I brought this up is because the government has been shut down, and this program here, okay, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, is also shut down. And we have a major conflict or battle ensuing here with, 48 million people are on this program nationwide. And they're already threatening, hey, we're going to go in and rob the food. And hey, we're going to go do this, if you don't feed us and all this other stuff. Most of these people are low income, let's face it. But many of them, unfortunately, and I listen to quite a few retailers say how they buy the SNAP programs, pennies on the dollar for cash. And so there's a whole bunch of scams. Anything to do with government programs are scams. I don't care if we're talking about the military industrial complex or we're talking about SNAP programs. They're well-intentioned at the beginning, and then all of a sudden there's all kinds of, money disappearing from these organizations and these programs. So it's not me saying this is absolute evidence. Just look at everything that Doge has discovered, where money is funding all kinds of crap outside the United States. So here we see, SNAP officially has run out of money yesterday. Okay. So what does that mean? Here's an article. You could read it yourself. You could Google it. But what's more important is I think this is being used for a reason by, it's a political move. So here we see another criminal federal judge ordering the Trump administration to pay the SNAP benefits out of a contingency fund. My friends, if you understand real politics and how this country has been so corrupted, much of the corruption has been happening at the federal judge level, the judicial level. And I'm not talking about the Supreme Court. I'm talking about the state courts, where these federal judges are appointed by, whether they're Democrat or Republican, doesn't matter. And they're legislating from the bench, which is illegal. They are not supposed to do that. The executive, which is the president, has authority over these programs. So what happens here is, the legal team on Trump's side is going to have to go to the appellate court and go to the Supreme Court in order to rectify this. So dragging along more time, more money, more, it's all a game. It's all a ploy. But here we see the federal judge once again is threatening, or has basically sided. And this is, I think, a Rhode Island, left-leaning lunatic judge that doesn't know his ass from his elbow, but basically is a political hack. And this is the thing we have to understand, because we have spineless politicians in Congress and in Washington that are doing what they're supposed to be doing by the powers that shouldn't be. But the federal judges, on the other hand, who are basically controlled as well, can get away with doing stupid things like this. But anyway, we'll see it. The reason I'm pointing this out, number one, the full moon is about food. But I also want to, we got to joke about this a little bit. Here's the upcoming Walmart greeter when the EBT benefits end. I mean, obviously I'm joking about this, but this is a real possibility here around this full moon, is what I'm getting at, is food protests, people getting out of hand, especially when I see some of these alignments coming up, like Venus squaring Pluto, the moon squaring Pluto. And this is all within the next couple of days. That's why I'm bringing this up, friends. Okay, well, I'll get to the astrology. But here, food banks are already hiring armed security ahead of possible riots. So my point being is what have I been saying, and many others have been saying all along? These riots are going to escalate. Now, I say this as an astrologer, as an intuitive. I see the writing on the wall. I use the astrology to see the symbolism and the trends, and we haven't seen anything yet. We haven't seen anything, that is really detrimental. I do believe it's going to happen in 2026. And I'm doing the astrology right now for 2026. And, it has a lot to do with the outer planets, and I've said this before, when Neptune and Saturn go into Aries is very confrontational, and Uranus goes back into Gemini next year, about the middle of the year. The energy is going to go up, and people are going to continue to rebel against something. Okay, whether it's food, whether it's ICE agents, whether it's the government, whatever you want to, we're going to see it. Okay, so again, prepare yourself without the fear, especially if you live in one of these blue cities or Democrat leaning countries, that too, but states or cities, because these places have been captured. They've been completely controlled by the deep state around the world. So anyway, my point being is we are seeing a trend here around this full moon. Now, here is a post that I want to share with you. Take it with a grain of salt, like everything else I put out there. You believe what you want. Please do your own research and come to your own conclusion. This cat is the C here, 3, has been on point on many things, some stuff not so much. But of course, here is what this person is basically saying. Okay, there's supposedly a national emergency, upcoming elections, which is basically on the 4th. It's coming out that this party here is controlling the government shutdown. Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a huge, gigantic, pivotal, with 42 million Americans that are on food stamps are not going to get their food stamps. That's going to create chaos. This was planned by this party here, connected to this guy right here, who's really dark and evil. And this is what they've always wanted. Remember, the reason they want this, there's several reasons for this. One, they can't rectify this financial situation. The financial system is basically collapsing. We can't continue to print money we don't have, okay, because it's driving inflation through the roof. Number two, people are waking up and they're seeing how this corrupt system works. And then number three, they want to implement a new control monetary system using digital currency. So this is what they've said. I've shown you before, okay? Don't take my word for it. But again, this is why they need this here. They need chaos. They need people fighting each other, so it could be the major distractions for what they really want. Now, this U.S. won't be able to make military by November 15th. They can't pay the military. So there's a problem here as well. And this country here, okay, is also connected to the elections. This was what's his name? Burns. I forgot his name. The guy from uh, Patrick Burns. Patrick Burns talked about how they discovered all of these computers and everything coming out of this country here. Now, again, take it with a grain of salt. They're the machines that they were associated with. So this is one of the supposed reasons why we're going after this country right here. Okay. A lot of it is BS, but we'll see what happens. But here is another interesting post by this guy, Anthony Cabasa, all right, on X. I saw this about a week ago. And he's a reporter. He says he's a reporter. I don't know. Again, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. But he says the Trump admin to create nations first, right there, as you could see it, if you could read it, National Guard Response Force to begin training troops for nationwide bingo, bingo. See that? These troops are specializing in chemical and biological and nuclear scenarios. Again, he says an insider sent them all of these documents showing what they have planned. Again, friends, take it with a grain of salt. These days, you don't even know what's real anymore. Okay, this is a very deep chess game that we're all playing. We're trying to figure it all out. Okay, but I'm just giving you some breadcrumbs so it gets you guys on the way. Now, what does this have to do with the full moon? It has to do with power. It has to do with discovering. Every full moon is about a discovery or a realization. So this is why I'm showing you this. Okay. And so a lot of it could be tied into the ICE agents and, they're being under attack as well. But also the food, the shortage of food and, not being able to pay military people. So we might see this. Now, let's turn to the political nonsense. As you know, we've been striking boats and killing people in the water there, supposedly drug runners. I don't know. I'm not there. But this is what's going on there. A look at U.S. military, unusual large forces in the Caribbean. Of course, we know that as of today, they seem to be going towards Venezuela. Now, here is, this was a couple of days ago. Military strikes on Venezuela appear likely, increasingly likely. Again, why is Venezuela being targeted? If you understand how the system works, friends, and Maduro, and I'm not saying I'm a fan here, but he's basically saying the same thing many other countries and leaders have said. The U.S. is after our oil and gas. That's correct. I do believe that is true. They're very rich in oil and minerals. So here, the smart move was for him to sign a deal with Putin, to get some protection. But so far, Russia and China have not protected Venezuela. Again, this all falls under the full moon. Full moon is about partnerships because the full moon in Taurus is ruled by Venus. Partnerships. We see a partnership here, right? This just happened a couple of days ago. So we see a partnership happening. But if you really want to understand how this criminal cabal, worldwide criminal banking cabal works, you must watch this video. Okay, this is John Perkins. He wrote a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And he lays out in perfect detail, you could watch this video or others, he's done many interviews, how he goes into countries and tries to get the leaders to sell their minerals to our corporations, to our, make loans from the big world banks, IMF, all of this other stuff. And he lays it out perfectly. When the leaders do not go along, we send in the military. So this is another example of how it works. Again, I'm revealing to you the hidden. Now it's up to you to take it and go much deeper. Okay, I'm giving you the breadcrumbs, friends. And again, all under the full moon, which brings to light information. Let's get into the astrology. Enough about that, clown show politics. But anyway, let's go into today as I'm doing this presentation here. We see the sun going through Scorpio, very important. Also, the sun in Scorpio does reveal things, brings to light the darkness, the power structures, the stuff that's hidden. Absolutely right there. We see that the moon has entered Aries. So many of us today and tomorrow will be very active. Aries is very active. Aries represents the self. So Aries is going to continue to be very much take charge kind of energy. All right. We see Mars is in Scorpio right here. Again, digging deep, discovering things that are hidden. But this week, Mars will leave Scorpio and go into Sagittarius. Very important. All right. Mercury is in Sagittarius, but it is basically slowing down to go retrograde. And this is what it will do on the 9th. So very important. And so we see a lot of retrogrades. We see the outer planets in retrograde, 1, 2, 3, and we'll see Mercury in retrograde. And this week, also on the 11th, Jupiter will go retrograde. And it's going to be in Cancer, the sign of the United States. Very important. So the United States is front and center during this retrograde period, which basically lasts until March of 2026. So I'm going to say here as a prediction, watch the United States or any Cancer nation for that matter. And by the way, Venezuela is a Cancer nation. They were born on July 5th. And I do believe I have a chart, or I did a chart on Venezuela in my inner circle community. Okay. There, again, I could talk more freely and give you my actual opinions on what I think is happening. So here we see a lot of dynamic changes happening with the astrology. Now, Mars will enter Sagittarius on the 4th, right there. Now, the energy of Mars in Sagittarius is very important because these are both fire signs now. Mars is a get up and go kind of fire sign. Sagittarius is an impulsive, get up and go, optimistic. I'm going to speak my mind. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to take charge because I'm overly confident. Here we see that energy. But look at what happens right away when the Mars enters Sagittarius. It's going to be met with Uranus, the wild card of the zodiac. And this is all on the 4th. So I'm going to suggest to many of you that Tuesday the 4th is a very much a high energy, vibrant day where it's very unstable. Okay. So we could see things like the US attacking Venezuela. We could see market issues. We could see things related to food production or, more announcements about that. Maybe the SNAP stuff kicks in where people are rioting in some of these major cities. So again, I'm doing this on the 2nd. So we got a couple of days here. And because the full moon is also being activated right here, you see now at the same time, 12:30 p.m., the transiting moon has now entered Taurus, the sign of the full moon and the sign of food, the sign of power. And look at what it's doing. It begins to square powerful Pluto and make an alignment also to Mars. So again, I'm suggesting Tuesday is a very volatile day. I know in the United States here, we do have some elections going on, like in New York City with the mayoral race. And I've predicted that, it's not a far stretch to say he's going to win the mayoral race there. So we'll have the first, communist Muslim mayor in New York. And so we'll see what happens there. But again, very volatile energy coming in on a personal level. This means your energy level is going to be off, or it's going to be very high strung. You're going to feel like you're being overloaded. Remember, when there's a lot of alignments happening on one day, we feel overwhelmed. And if we have more of this cosmic energy that keeps pounding away at us, that's even more on top of that. You see what I'm getting, friends? So better to know that it's coming rather than sit there and go, oh, my life stinks and I hate this, I hate that. Understand the energy. You follow? This is why I do what I do here. Now, the full moon. Let's talk about this full moon and why it's important and why I talk about it being about values and confusion. So we see here the full moon is going to be opposing the sun at 13 degrees. So wherever this is in your birth chart, you want to take a look at that area because it's going to highlight that area of your chart. And full moons are opposition. So right away, it has a built-in sort of tension. Okay, sun is pulling on the moon is pulling on the sun, that kind of thing symbolically. But look at the Mars. Mars is also pulling on Uranus, the wild card of the zodiac. So I'm going to suggest here that we do have very volatile energy going into the 5th as well, where surprises with politics. Remember, Sagittarius rules things related to politics, religion, religious beliefs, the greater meaning, the bigger picture. Okay. And it's up against Uranus, which is like rebellious energy. So I'm going to say that we are going to see either more protests and riots. We're going to see a major conflict sort of evolve, possibly the United States striking Venezuela. Maybe Russia and China get involved as well. Say, hey, wait a second here. Let's not be hasty. But again, it's very tumultuous. We also see Jupiter and Saturn at 25 degrees each, making a trine, which is normally an easy going, but because it's Jupiter's in Cancer and Saturn is in Pisces, these are about emotions and feelings. and the United States is a Cancer nation. So I'm going to have to say that there is volatility here, emotions here. Okay. And we see also powerful Pluto in the mix with Mars and Uranus. So again, looking at this as an astrologer, I'm seeing intense energy, real possibilities of something major happening. And I don't want to say another shooting or something stupid like that, but it is possible. Okay. And I don't say that lightly, but as astrologers, we look at aspects that are very heavy. When you have a full moon like this, which is an opposition, you have this going on. You have, the biggest planets in the zodiac, Saturn and Jupiter being aligned, and you see Pluto in the mix. You scratch your head and you go, ooh, this is big. This is important. Something's coming, and that's how it works in astrology. But here is the United States' chart, and we're going to show you what I'm talking about here. Here's the full moon, 11th to 5th. So something about powership and leader and communities is being highlighted, obviously. But look at Mars. Mars is here in Sagittarius opposing Uranus right here. And the sixth house represents nourishment, food, health. So what do we have going on with the SNAP program? It's being defunded. People are worried about their, getting food. So here I see the potential here for something going on with riots and protests over food and food production or whatever it is. Okay. That's just my take on it. We see Jupiter also loosely conjuncting Mercury, communication, passion, desire, all being amped up. And of course, Pluto, which has been sitting here in the second house, but now it's going direct, could inadvertently create more tension or activity and frustration with the power structures. And that's how I'm seeing it. All right. So I'm seeing the dynamics here. And of course, Mercury slowing down to go retrograde doesn't help much either because it's in the 12th house of the United States, which is the hidden realm, which is the house of limitations and self-sabotage. It's the spiritual house as well, too. And this is why many people are turning to religions these days, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, and the Muslim faith. They're holding on to that because they don't understand what's happening in the world. So they have that core belief of, some sort of savior that's going to save them. But again, friends, that area is going to be dismantled as well in years to come. So a lot of volatility in the United States' chart as well. Now, let's talk about Venezuela here. I did put this birth chart. I did do this in my inner circle community, but I'll show you guys as well. Here is the Venezuela birth chart. I have it for July 5th, 1811. And here it has a Scorpio rising, sun in Cancer, and its moon was in Capricorn. Okay, so here we see Mars just entered their first house and opposing Uranus in the 7th, which is about partnership. So we see the conflict right away here. But what's more important is the sun and the full moon right there on Uranus of Venezuela across on the 6th house. So we're looking at things that are hidden. And maybe there's been some shenanigans going on in Venezuela. I'm not saying this is a great country, but again, we're seeing stuff being activated here with Uranus energy. Uranus in the natal chart, transiting Uranus with Mars. And so we're seeing a lot of volatility here, friends. We're also seeing the transiting Saturn making an alignment to loosely, because it's retrograde, going backwards to Mars, the leader of the country. We're also seeing it affect Jupiter up here. So we're seeing actually a big trine going on here. And so there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of tension in this country right now. And this full moon will continue to bring it up. This issue will not go away for quite a while because of Mercury going retrograde. That's going to be an issue. And Mars will come down to meet Mercury here. And I believe it's on the 12th. So again, I would say around the 12th, there could be some big news or announcements coming out of Venezuela as well. Like they made a deal, they struck a deal. And you can see here, Pluto is going through the 3rd house of communication, which is also very important. And so Venezuela is trying to avoid some sort of major conflict with the United States. But if you understand what's going on a deeper level, which I will cover in my inner circle right after this, I go much deeper and I show you who's connected to all of this. Again, I can't do that here. So consider joining, link down below. Now, I want to show you some of these other alignments that are happening, and we'll wind up winding down here. So look at what happens on the 6th. Venus enters Scorpio. Now, if you understand the Scorpio energy, it's very passionate. Levels go up. Transformative energy to relationships and finance. So once again, we're seeing the bubblings of, financial matters, relationships that can be a bit tense right now, and increase into intensity, especially around the full moon. Between that 4th, November 4th, those alignments are off the charts. And then the 5th, we have the full moon. And then the 6th, we have Venus ramping up even more in more passion, desire, and things related to relationships and finance. Venus does not work that well in Scorpio. Okay, because Venus is all about getting along and being happy and peaceful and beauty. And Scorpio is like, no, I'm gonna get what I want. I'm intense. Screw you. It's about drive and determination. Things associated with the underworld, so to speak. So the 6th, things begin to heat up once again. Then on the 7th, Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus for the last time in our lifetime. Because remember, it takes 84 years to go through, to come back to the same sign. So reflection period that challenges stability and values, especially concerning money and possessions. This is what we have going on till about, I believe, the 3rd month of 2026. Retrograde Uranus is going to dig up more stuff related to the Taurus energy, food production, power, money, things related symbolically to the sign of Taurus. That's how it works. What we believe in, our values about money. So many of you have asked me so many questions. What should I do with my money? I have resources. What should I do? I'm not a financial advisor, but I could only suggest to you what I have done over the years of understanding this, okay? And this is coming from professionals who've invested, either bought land, bought real estate if they have, large sums of money, or they've bought gold and silver in their possessions, or they've transferred their IRAs into gold-backed, IRAs. So again, these are things just to safeguard and protect your assets. Many people have bought cryptos. And so it's just a way of diversifying, or at least protecting the value of your current money, because it's losing its value every day. So again, find the professionals. There's lots of them out there. Anyway, look at the 7th. Venus squares Pluto. Intense and transformative emotional energy, potentially leading to power struggles, financial tension, and a deep desire for control. That's the astrology, friends. This whole week is going to be a bit unstable, maybe a little confusing, as I pointed out in the video at the beginning, the title. And so, Venus squares Pluto is about power. Venus is about partnerships and relationships and money. Pluto is about power, and Venus is in Scorpio. Pluto is ruled by Scorpio. So we're seeing some heavy potential here this week for major disruptions. So now that you prepare yourself psychologically. Oh, Joe, when you see something happening, more conflict, or, riots and protests or whatever it is, you go, oh, Joe was talking about that. Absolutely. That's what I'm talking about. In our personal lives, it's a frustration level that reaches a certain peak, and you wind up taking action towards something. For instance, if you're frustrated with your weight or the way you look or whatever, all of a sudden you decide, I'm going to join a gym and I'm going to do this twice a week, and I'm going to take better care of myself. You see what I'm saying? It's not necessarily a negative. It's how you interpret the energy. And so we see this on the 7th being very volatile. Then it gets even more interesting on the 9th when Mercury goes retrograde. Mercury is about communication. So now we have a breakdown of communication, a disruption in communication. Travel and technology lead to a period of reflection. That's what Mercury retrograde means. And it's in Sagittarius, which has a lot to do with philosophy, meaning of life, purpose, politics. This is all under the umbrella. And so we'll be reviewing a lot of that in our own consciousness. What is it that I believe in? What is the source of all this chaos? What is the source of the energy of this universe? We'll be questioning all of that. Religious beliefs. Many people are starting to realize their religious beliefs have been created to control them, as I've realized this years ago, studying religions and understanding where they came from. And so they're a control mechanism, because once you adhere to a certain ideology with these religions, you are cutting yourself off from the real you. In other words, you're not going any deeper. You're just going to have some figure or, some book tell you, oh, this is it. This is all I need to know. No, it's not. It's not how it works in this world, And so, but anyway, to each his own. But this is very volatile. This full moon is really going to kick up some major energy. And the following days after that, the energy is going to be high. So this could be very good for mobility. Again, taking action on a project or doing some sort of physical activity, getting things done around the house, coming to a realization about income and money and getting rid of debt possibly because, Taurus is also about money. So there could be a lot of that going on this week. So again, don't take this as a negative or a positive. Take it as energy coming in. How can I utilize it? Okay. If it's too heavy, rest. Then take action when necessary. That's my suggestion. That's exactly what I do. All right. So, anyway, if you want to know more, I write a newsletter each month. Okay. And it's on all my websites, but especially in the community. They get an email sent to them. So you could join by going to astrologyjoe.com, click on the newsletter, put your first name in and your email address, and it'll get sent to you each month. Okay. For free. You get 1 or 2 emails a month. That's it. But also, I have it on my other websites, planetswithin.com, on the first page right there. Okay, you could click on it, read the whole thing. It's a pretty long and lengthy. It goes much more in depth about the astrology of the month. And so at least it gives you an idea of what I'm talking about. It goes through all the trends and what's happening. Now, since we're talking about a full moon, check out the free moon reading. Okay, this is a third party product that we my admins found, and it really is a valuable full moon reading. You click on the sign that you are, and then it'll give you choices. It'll give you 2-month choices to which sign you are, and then it'll ask for your date and all that other stuff. But again, it's a free mini reading, and if you decide to buy the whole report, then we get a little kickback on that. So it's not like anything, it's not a big deal, but it is very good because I've gotten one and my members have gotten them, and they're really helpful because it helps you discover what moon position your birth was in, and maybe your kids' birth, your spouse's birth, and it gives you a better understanding of their personality and their emotions. So keep that in mind. That's why it's a great benefit. So again, I'm going to be in the Inner Circle call right after this, about 20 minutes from now. To join, there's a link down below. You'll be on a Zoom call, so you may need Zoom to get on the call, but you'll get into the community and you'll go right up to the calendar and you'll see the dates there and just click on today's date and it'll give you a link for the Zoom call. And then you'll click on it and then you'll be in the call. But please, I believe you have to download Zoom first and it's free. So check it out. And of course, the extended horoscopes are there, the weekly astrology, which members really do enjoy. And we go down the rabbit hole pretty deep in the Inner Circle, friends. Okay. And like I said, we've just added a second day on Thursday. We talk about, what you see in the community. All right. So remember, throughout all this craziness that's about to ensue, and I mean, it's going to get more, a little bit more chaotic in the months to come. We are spiritual beings having human experiences. That's the key here, friends. When you understand this, you understand who you are. When you look in that mirror, you're not just seeing a physical body, you're seeing a spirit inside that body, and that's who you really are. Okay? It's not the suit that you're wearing, it's the energy in the suit. And you always have to remember that because when you do that, everything else doesn't matter anymore. You go, I'm having this experience. I will do the best I can. I will follow what I enjoy doing. I will not follow things that don't help me anymore. And I will understand the symbolism and the patterns and the trends. And it'll make me a better person. That's how you do it, friends. Okay, that's what I do. Anyway, let me sign out of this thing here. Stop this presentation. Get back here. And let's see. Hide that. Hold on one second, friends. Let's see here. Stop sharing. There we go. All right, we're back in action here. We got 2 minutes. And so, as you can see, the energy is absolutely off the charts. And this week coming in, especially wherever that Taurus lands in your birth chart. So 13 degrees. So keep an eye on that because it's going to be very important for you guys. And I'm just quickly looking. I'm subscribed and always watch your videos. Thank you so much. I'm just looking at a couple of comments here real quick. And yes, we are in very unstable conditions. Absolutely. No doubt about it. And again, this happens when we go through massive transformations in society. Just look at all the massive transformations in society. Usually years before, there's been a lot of disruption, chaos, however you want to put it. The difference is what I've discovered here is that whatever this change is that's coming in, it's also physical, meaning the earth and the magnetic fields, the sun is getting active as well. And this is all science saying, this is not speculation. We know the earth's magnetic field is moving. We know there's solar events that are hitting the earth, or some sort of magnetic field is hitting the earth. So these are physical changes that are happening because it's all happening all at once. And the astrology is just, again, a symbolic way of looking at things. And so we astrologers are going, holy crap, we got some big changes coming ahead. Society is going to break down. There's going to be new innovation coming in, and people are going to have to look at the world a different way. So the big news really is, how do we want to deal with this? Do we want to accept it? Do we want to accept the AI? Do we want to accept the digital identifications? I say, okay, if you value your freedom, you will not participate in any of it. Anyway, friends, there you have it. I appreciate all of you being in the conversation and watching my live streams. Please share, like, and subscribe. And of course, I will see many of you in about 15 minutes in the inner circle. So click the link down below if you're interested, and I will see you guys soon. Have a great week and talk to you soon, friends. Bye for now.